Sunday, a little after 4. The laundry's folded. The dishes are drying. Your phone has finally gone quiet. And instead of relief, a flat gray weight settles in behind your ribs. And the part that really gets under your skin, you can't name what's wrong. Rewind a few weeks. You finally got the thing, the raise, the bigger apartment, the person you'd been texting into the small hours. The high showed up, hung around till about Wednesday, then quietly packed a bag and left. By Thursday, your thumb's already scrolling for the next thing. Now it's 2 a.m. You're refreshing a feed you don't even enjoy, thumb moving on its own, feeding some small hole that takeout and paychecks and one more episode keep almost filling, and never quite do. Okay, now do something with me. In your head, strip it all away, your name, your clothes, the calendar that tells you who to be at 9 a.m. Every single person you love, all gone by nightfall. Is there anything left of you that nobody, no matter what, could take? And if you found something, some last thing they couldn't confiscate, here's the real question. Could it survive not just a bad Sunday, but a place built on purpose, brick by brick, to erase it completely? Turns out that gray Sunday feeling isn't just yours. A psychiatrist in Vienna gave it a name. He called it the Sunday neurosis, the emptiness that rushes in the moment the busy week lets go of you. And he argued it wasn't a personal quirk. He called it the quiet epidemic of the modern world. He wasn't guessing. He pointed at a survey of 7,948 students across 48 American colleges, run through Johns Hopkins. 78% said their number one goal in life was finding a purpose and meaning. Only 16% picked making a lot of money. Not cash, not comfort. Meaning was the thing they said they were after. And he had a theory about why. Machines were quietly taking over the deciding, telling you when to work, what to want, how to fill the hours, until people were handed all this free time and genuinely didn't know what to do with themselves. He called that empty space the existential vacuum. The man's name was Viktor Emil Frankl, born in Vienna in 1905. As a young neurologist, he corresponded with Freud and moved in Adler's circle, and, as the story's widely told, got pushed out of that circle in 1927 for refusing to toe the line. By his 30s, he'd already sketched his own therapy, built around one word, meaning. Then history came for him. In 1941, he was handed a U.S. immigration visa, a clean ticket out of a closing trap. He let it expire. He stayed in Vienna to care for his elderly parents, and that choice cost him almost everything. In 1942, they deported him, his wife, and his parents to their Scienstadt, where his father died in the camp. In 1944 came Auschwitz, then the labor camps at Kaufering and Turkium. He lived through typhus, forced labor, and starvation. And by the accounts that have come down since, he lost almost his entire family, his wife, his mother, his brother, all of them killed. He walked out the other side having lost nearly everyone. And here's the detail I keep coming back to. Hidden in the inner pocket of his coat was the only copy of his first book. Everything he believed, in his own hand. At Auschwitz, they took the coat, and it was gone. So he rebuilt the whole thing from memory, on stolen scraps of paper. Liberated in 1945, he came home to a Vienna emptied of everyone he loved. And in 9 straight days he dictated this memoir, first published anonymously, later carrying a German title that basically dares you to say yes to life in spite of everything. It's since sold over 10 million copies across 24 languages, and a Library of Congress survey ranked it among the most influential books in America. So that's where we're going. How one man turned a death camp into a full-blown theory of what drives every human being. And here's my unfair advantage. I've read everything published after he died. I can lay his 1946 pages beside a 2019 study of nearly 7,000 people he never lived to see, and by the end you'll be able to name the one idea in this book that modern science actually proved, and tell it apart from the 3 it dressed up as science and never earned. Stick around, because I'm going to show you exactly where the line is. 1941. The American consulate in Vienna calls Viktor Frankl's number and hands him the ticket everyone else was praying for. An immigration visa, a legal way out before the wire went up. He lets it expire. He stays because the visa was for him alone and his elderly parents couldn't come. And if you've ever refused an exit door on purpose, you know that's either insane or the whole point of the man. 3 years later, that choice deposits him on a train platform at Auschwitz, in front of a guard whose finger flicks left or right. Left is the chimney and he doesn't know it yet. Tucked in the inner pocket of his coat, hidden against his chest, is the only manuscript of his life's work. They take the coat. The theory of meaning goes up in someone else's furnace before he's even proven it. The mind does something strange on that first night, and Frankl reaches for a name psychiatry already had for it: the delusion of reprieve. It's the fantasy of a condemned man on his way to the gallows who convinces himself the pardon will arrive at the last second. Every new prisoner believes it. This can't really be happening. Someone will realize the mistake. I'll be the exception. Then they take almost everything. Clothes, shoes, hair, name, the wedding ring, until you're standing there owning nothing but the naked body you happen to be inside. And, if you're Frankl, a pair of glasses and a belt you'll later trade for a scrap of bread. The old life doesn't fade out. It's confiscated in an afternoon. What replaces the terror isn't more terror. It's phase 2. Apathy, a kind of emotional death that switches on to keep you breathing. Frankl watched men he knew get dragged out stiff and cold, and felt his own reaction flatten to nothing. You'd assume horror is the thing that breaks a person. It isn't, the blankness is. Frankl describes stepping over a dying man to keep his spot in the soup line, and I want you to feel how ordinary that had become, because that numbness was the psyche's tourniquet. Now here's the hinge the whole book turns on. The guards controlled the food, the sleep, the roll calls, who lived and who fed the furnace. Everything except one thing they kept trying to reach and never could. Frankl saw it in the men who walked the huts comforting others and handing over their last piece of bread. A crust that, in that place, was a piece of their own life. There weren't many of them, but there were enough to settle the argument forever. That's the sentence he built out of the ashes. The last of the human freedoms is to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Not your fate, your stance toward it. They can take the coat, the glasses, the name. The vote on who you'll be inside it stays yours. And he pinned it to a line from Dostoevsky that he'd repeat to himself in the cold. There is only one thing I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings. Read that twice. He's saying suffering you can't escape can still be turned into an achievement, depending entirely on how you carry it. Let me be straight with you before you canonize the man. Frankl survived on luck, a guard's mood, a transport that turned the wrong way, a typhus that didn't finish him. He never once claims the noble men lived. Most of them died, and he knew it. Hold on to that, because his own story and his thesis are going to start arguing with each other. The camps end, and Frankl finds the third phase waiting on the other side, the one nobody warns you about: depersonalization. A freed prisoner walks out through the open gate into a meadow full of blooming flowers, kneels down in the color and the light, and feels absolutely nothing. The joy isn't there. It has to be relearned like a language. So the descent had stages, and the climb back out had stages too. The mind doesn't flip freedom on like a switch. That gap between being released and being able to feel it is exactly where Frankl builds everything that comes next. Because if a meadow can leave a free man empty, then the thing that fills a life was never going to be the pleasure or the comfort you keep chasing on a Sunday. Walk through the gate on your first morning and you think you already know the cast. Stripes mean victim. The skull on the cap means monster. Frankl watched that theory fall apart in about a week. Because one of the SS commanders was quietly walking into the town pharmacy and paying, out of his own wallet, for medicine for the prisoners. No audience. No credit. A monster in the correct uniform doing the one thing the uniform was never meant to do. And the man beating you at roll call? Often not a guard at all. He was a prisoner, a capo promoted for cruelty, wearing the same stripes as you and swinging harder than any German ever bothered to. So Frankl draws the only line the camp actually proved. There are two races of men in this world, the decent and the indecent. Not Jew and German, not prisoner and guard. The crack runs straight through every group, and straight through you. That's the moral half. Now the harder half, what suffering is even for. Frankl treats an elderly doctor, 2 years after the man's wife died, still flattened, unable to climb out of the grief. Frankl asks him one question: what would have happened if you had died first, and she had been the one left behind? The doctor answers, she would have suffered terribly. There it is. His grief is the price of her being spared it. He didn't lose her for nothing. He's carrying the pain so she never had to. Suffering stops being suffering the moment it finds a meaning. And the man walked out standing straighter, without a single fact having changed. Here's where I get to do something you can't. I'm holding the whole book open at once, the thesis on one page, his own story on the facing page. He tells you a will to meaning is what kept men alive, then narrates his own survival as a chain of coin flips. A line that moved the wrong way, a guard in a good mood, a transport he dodged by luck. The book argues with itself, and I can point at the exact page. And that contradiction is the point, not the flaw. Meaning was never the promise that you'd survive. It's the one thing chance couldn't confiscate, how you carried the part you could not change. Late in life, Frankl names the three things no meaning erases. He calls it the tragic triad: pain, guilt, and death. The stuff you don't get to negotiate. So in 1984, he bolts a new essay onto the back of the old book, The Case for a Tragic Optimism. An old man adding one more argument to a thing he first wrote at 40, as if the case still wasn't closed. And the argument was hiding in the title the whole time. In English, it's Man's Search for Meaning, clean, marketable. But the German edition later carried a title closer to a dare. Nevertheless, say yes to life in spite of everything. That word, nevertheless, is the whole second half of this book pretending to be a title. Not yes to life because it's pleasant. Yes to it while pain, guilt, and death are all staring back at you. Which leaves the obvious question he spends the rest of the book chasing. How? Where does a person actually find the meaning strong enough to hold all that weight? Picture the two biggest names in psychology sitting in a Vienna coffee house, and Frankl walks up and drags over a third chair. Some writers dubbed his method the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy, which, at that table in that city, was basically fighting words. Freud got there first, and Freud's whole answer for why you do anything was pleasure. Underneath every choice you make, he said, sits a drive to release tension. You're a pressure cooker looking for a whistle to blow. Adler said no, it's power. You're driven to climb out of feeling small, to matter more than the person beside you. And here's the part that never stops being funny. By most tellings, this is the same Adler whose circle pushed Frankl out back in 1927. The Will to Power Guys Club, showing the Will to Meaning guy the door. Frankl's move is to say both of them are describing the basement, not the building. What you actually run on, he argues, is a reason, a why. Strip a person of pleasure, strip them of power, and the ones who keep going are the ones who still have something to keep going for. Then he flips the question around on you. You don't get to stand there demanding that life explain its meaning. Frankl says life is the one doing the asking, and every single day, with whatever you actually do, you are the one answering. Here's the part that makes people fling the book across the room. You can't get meaning by chasing it, and you can't get happiness by chasing happiness. I'm straight at it, and it backs away from you like a shy cat. Frankl has a name for the trap. Hyperreflection, watching yourself so closely you break the very thing you're watching. Think of how a healthy eye works. It never sees itself, it just looks out at the world, and the day you start noticing your own eye, some speck floating in it, is the day something's gone wrong. Turn that same anxious stare on your own happiness, and all you'll ever catch are the flaws. So happiness, he says, cannot be pursued. It has to ensue. It's a boomerang, and here's the detail everyone forgets. A boomerang only flies back to you when it misses what it was thrown at. Comes home precisely because it didn't hit the target. Which means the whole self-help shelf telling you to actualize yourself has it upside down. Frankl says self-actualization only shows up as a side effect. You get it by pouring yourself into work that needs doing or a person who needs you, and it slips in the back door while you're busy with them. Now let me do the thing you can't do from your chair. I'm holding the whole book open at once. On one page, he tells you a will to meaning is what kept men alive in the camps. On the facing page, he narrates his own survival, a chain of coin flips. A finger that waved him right instead of left, where left was the chimney, a guard in a decent mood, a transport that happened not to leave. The thesis and the memoir don't quite shake hands, and I'm parking that right here for you to pick up later. And there's a piece of civic architecture Frankl was fond of floating. The Statue of Liberty on the East Coast is only half a monument. It needs a twin on the West Coast, a statue of responsibility, standing guard at the other gate. Because freedom on its own, he warns, rots. Liberty with nothing on the other side of the scale is just permission to do whatever you feel like, and permission with no one to answer to curdles into pure arbitrariness. Freedom is the question. Responsibility is you staying on the hook for the answer. So that's the engine he's putting in your hands. Don't chase pleasure, don't win power, aim past yourself at something that isn't you, and stay on the hook for it. Whether that engine actually turns over or just idles nicely on the page is exactly what we're about to put to the test. Frankl's first move on you is physical. In Freud's office, you lie back on a couch to confess the things that are unpleasant to tell. In Frankl's, he sits you bolt upright in a hard chair to hear the things that are unpleasant to hear. Logos is just Greek for meaning, and that one word is the whole steering correction. Analysis has you dig through the basement of your childhood. Logotherapy spins your chair toward the windshield and asks what you're actually driving at. So where does this meaning actually live? Frankl doesn't hand you a warm fog of good vibes. He gives you 3 doors, and only 3. Door 1 is a deed, something you make, finish, or put into the world. And Frankl isn't theorizing here. He had the receipt hidden in the inner pocket of his own coat. His first book, the one he calls simply his life's work, rode in the inner pocket of the coat he wore. It was the deed he was living for, his entire argument, hidden against his ribs. Then Auschwitz. They took the coat, they took the manuscript, they stripped the clothes off his back and handed him a dead man's rags. The deed was gone, confiscated at the gate. So he rebuilt it, on stolen scraps of paper, in cramped shorthand. He reconstructed the book line by line, and when typhus was burning through him, he says the drive to finish it is what kept him breathing through the fever. Door 2 is love. Frankl says you can be emptied of everything you own and still find a reason to live in a single person. You don't survive for a project, you survive for someone's face. Door 3 is the one he stakes the whole book on, your attitude toward suffering you can't escape. Change the situation when you can. But when you can't, the last free thing you own is how you carry it. That's where meaning lives. Now the party trick, the reason some patients walked out cured in a week. It starts with a loop Frankl called anticipatory anxiety. The fear of a symptom is exactly what summons the symptom. Say you're terrified of sweating in front of people. You walk into a meeting, and the instant you think don't sweat, the faucet opens. The dread and the sweat feed each other until you're soaked and certain everyone can see it. Frankl's counter is almost insulting in how simple it is. Stop fighting it. Walk in and resolve to sweat as hard as humanly possible. You only leaked a quart before, so now you'll pour 10. Flood the room. Give them a real show. And the loop snaps, often inside a week. You cannot force the thing you're desperately trying to force. The second you chase the sweat on purpose, the fear has nothing left to feed on and quietly starves. Here's what I can see that Frankl couldn't. This one maneuver, paradoxical intention, is the single piece of his clinic that outlived him, folded quietly into modern CBT and ACT and taught to people who've never heard his name. But I'm holding the whole book at once, and there's a crack running through it. The same man who swears a will to meaning is what pulls you through also narrates his own survival as a string of coin flips and a guard's passing mood. Which parts hold and which don't is the hinge of this entire thing, and we pry it open soon. Here's the trick your brain misses when you read this book. Every prisoner who tells you meaning kept him alive is, by definition, still alive to tell you. You're interviewing the survivors. The men who'd argue back are ash and smoke. And the dead had meaning too. The camps murdered people who prayed every night, who lived for a wife back home, who kept an iron will right up to the door. Faith, love, purpose. None of it was a shield. The gas didn't check your reason for living first. I'm holding the whole book at once, so let me set the thesis on one page and his own survival on the facing page. He tells you a will to meaning is what pulled men through, then narrates his own rescue as a chain of coin flips and guards' moods. The book argues against itself, and I can point at the exact sentences. A transport gets waved toward a labor camp instead of a gas chamber. That's not attitude. That's a tired clerk and a pointing finger deciding, in 1 second, whether you keep breathing. He beats typhus. He slips a selection because a guard happens to look the other way that morning. Every hinge in his story swings on luck he never chose, the exact opposite of the point he's trying to sell you. Historian Timothy Peitel went back to the timeline in 2015 and found Frankl was inside Auschwitz proper only a few days before being shipped off to smaller labor subcamps. His whole warning was, "Stop turning this into a hero myth." The meaning didn't rescue him. The transfer did. Then the science grew up and walked past him. Two researchers, Desi and Ryan, spent decades showing human motivation isn't one master drive. It's at least three separate hungers. To steer your own life, to get good at something, to belong to people. Not one will to meaning. 3. Frankl even invented his own disorder, noogenic neurosis, a sickness he said came from an empty life. As far as I can tell, it never earned a line in the diagnostic manuals clinicians actually open. Not then, not decades later. And logotherapy, his whole method, by my read of the research, never built a real evidence base. It sat on the fringe while cognitive therapy reportedly stacked up trial after trial. A gorgeous idea that just never showed its work. But, and I'm not going to cheat you here, one slice of him got vindicated. Real, hard data, decades after he was buried, proved one specific piece of the man dead right. He kept insisting happiness can't be chased. It has to ensue, as a side effect of losing yourself in something bigger than you. Patricia Boyle's studies at Rush, around 2009 and 2010, tracked older adults and found the ones carrying a stronger sense of purpose held on longer and stayed sharper. And here's the move only Total Recall lets me make. I can lay his 1946 pages next to a 2019 study he never lived to see, nearly 7,000 adults over 50 tracked in JAMA Network open. Stronger life purpose, lower odds of dying across the board. He guessed it. They measured it. Even his strangest trick seems to have lived on, telling the insomniac to lie there and try hard to stay awake. From what I can find, it's held up when tested, and modern therapies quietly folded it into their toolkits without ever putting his name on it. So the memoir stands. One narrow insight stands. And the grand theory, that single master drive that supposedly outlasts hunger and death, is rubble on the floor. What's left is deciding what a book is worth when its biggest claim is wrong and its smallest one is true. That's the tally I'm about to run. Here's how Viktor Frankl walked into Auschwitz, with his entire life's work hidden in the inner pocket of his coat. The manuscript of his first book, years of it, rolled up and tucked where he could feel the pages against his chest. They took it, the coat, the book, all of it, and threw him a dead man's rags off a heap by the gate. And in the pocket of that dead man's coat, Frankl found a single torn page, the Shema Yisrael, the central prayer of Judaism, "Hear, O Israel." He decided that torn page was an order to live out the book he'd just lost. Hold that image, the pile, the swapped coat, the one surviving line, because now I'm going to hold the whole book open at once, his thesis on one page and his own life on the facing page, and tell you what it actually comes to. His master claim is that a will to meaning is the thing that keeps a human being alive and sane. And the refutation is standing in the same camp with him. The gas chambers took the devout, the loving, the purpose-soaked, by the millions. People overflowing with meaning, praying that exact Shema on the way through the door. And Frankl himself? Tell his survival honestly, and it isn't a will to meaning, it's a run of coin flips. A guard's finger flicking him right instead of left, and left was the chimney. A transport everyone swore was headed for the gas, that he chose to stay on when he was offered the way out, and it turned out to be a real rest camp. A typhus that didn't finish him. I'm holding the entire book at once, so I can lay the thesis flat against his own sentences. He tells you meaning is what let men live, then narrates his own living as dumb luck and someone else's whim. The book quietly refutes itself. So here's the verdict I've kept in my pocket for 6 acts. As testimony, this thing is unkillable, but as the science it claims to be, man's search for meaning is mostly wrong. Mostly, not entirely. And this is where knowing what got published after him earns its keep. I can set his 1946 book next to a 2019 study in JAMA, nearly 7,000 people he never lived to see, followed for years. Here's the precise spot it half vindicates him. The people who reported a strong sense of purpose died at lower rates than the people who didn't. And here's the precise spot it buries him. That's a correlation in warm, safe, well-fed modern life. Purpose buys you better odds over decades on the couch. It bought no one a single hour at the selection ramp. But one narrow claim has genuinely held. and it's the best thing in the book. Frankl says happiness can't be chased. It can only ensue as a side effect of throwing yourself at something or someone beyond you. Aim straight at it and you spook it. Aim past yourself and it shows up behind you. Modern research keeps confirming it. The people who chase happiness hardest tend to end up with less of it. Self-transcendence handing you happiness as a byproduct. That one sentence is now the closest thing in the entire book to proven fact. The grand machinery of the will to meaning collapsed. That single modest line survived. One line held, the same way one torn page held in a dead man's pocket. So quit reading it as a psychology textbook. It's a bad one. Read it as the thing it can't help being. A witness statement from a man who watched his own theory die all around him and then wrote it up as though it had lived. As testimony, nobody gets to lay a hand on it. Because under all of it sits one gap, and that gap is the whole verdict. What actually kept Viktor Frankl breathing was luck. The flick of a finger, the right line, the fever that broke in time. What he swears kept him breathing was meaning. Those are not the same thing, and he spent a lifetime refusing to see the daylight between them. So stand where you started this book. The pile of confiscated coats at the Auschwitz gate, snow coming down, Frankl's life's work still tucked in the inner pocket of one of them, his meaning going to the flames with everybody else's. And the man who'll spend the rest of his life telling us meaning is what saves us walks away from that pile alive on nothing but luck. Stand in that snow a second longer. That gap is what you take out the door with you. Thanks for listening. Drop a like and subscribe. That is how I feed my human.